Does it make you want to shake your ass? As a dance music producer, this is the number one question you should be asking yourself every time you are working on beats, starting a new track idea. If you're focusing on making club music, then no matter how experimental or weird or freaky you get with it, and around here we get pretty freaky, you gotta make sure that when people hear it, it makes them want to dance, right? In this video, I'm going to share with you a super simple but really effective technique for creating tracks that are like rhythmically complex and engaging that don't sacrifice that feel and groove. Now, you can reuse the standard tropes of house or techno or drum and bass or whatever, like that'll work, right? There are tropes for a reason, they're effective, they get the job done, they make people want to dance. But if you're gonna try to explore off the beaten track a bit more rhythmically, and you want to start making grooves that like catch people's attention, then there's a problem that you're probably gonna run into, and it goes like this. The more rhythmically complex your song is, the harder it is to make something that people are gonna want to dance to. One technique that I teach to my students who are interested in making more rhythmically engaging beats is called rhythmic displacement, and it's a technique that comes from like the world of jazz improvisation. The principle is really simple. You take a little group of notes and you keep all of the distances between those notes the same, you just shift where they start in relation to the pulse of the music. Now, in the jazz world, it's one way of like developing a theme, right? You've got a little lick that you're doing on your saxophone or whatever, and by playing around with where you start that melody, you create this sense of familiarity, yes, because it's something that we've heard before, but you're recontextualizing it in this new way. And that creates a lot of interest, a lot of complexity, while retaining some kind of familiarity, right? Dance music producers can use it too. It's a really easy thing to try, and it can have some really amazing results for making grooves that are kind of maybe off kilter, but that still really make you want to shake your ass. So let's open up Ableton and I will show you what I'm talking about. So I first came across this concept when working with drum breaks, like this one. I had this realization, and I don't know if you've noticed the same thing too, but I realized that whenever I was working with a drum break like this and chopping it up into different pieces and rearranging them, it was really easy to come up with like a complex rhythm that sounded really cool. But whenever I was programming my own beats, it just kind of sounded like a loose mess that didn't really make any sense at all. And so I wanted to figure out why that was the case. So let me show you what I mean. One of my favorite things to do with a drum break like this, I do it almost every time that I work with one. I just take the first kind of beat and a half and duplicate it, and it sounds like this. And it's automatically got this kind of like really fun feel to it, right? Where it's like syncopated, but you can feel where the beat is landing. And you can hear the ride cymbal in the background there. Shifting from being off the beat to on the beat, we could maybe extend that out by one. I like that. And what we've just done here is this exact technique, this rhythmic displacement. We've taken these three drum hits. We've got a kick that's 2/16, a kick that's 2/16, and a snare that's 2/16. And the relationship between those three hits stays the same. But because they start further on in the bar, they don't start on the downbeat, they start on the upbeat, they start on that 3/16 of that second beat. They shift around in terms of where they land in the pulse. Because we could do this instead, right? Let's make it a 1-bar loop. And that's fine, right? But what we did before was instead of starting on that beginning of that third beat, we kind of moved it up half a beat before, so that now we have this. Way more interesting, way more exciting. Or we could shift it half a beat behind instead and let the first part play out instead. Which is also cool. So rhythmic displacement is this really powerful tool that takes an established relationship between some notes that you have in your track. You're kind of breaking it up into like a little cell and saying, okay, I want to retain the relationship rhythmically between these three hits, but I want to change where they start and where they finish within the bar, within the broader beat itself. And what you produce is something that's rhythmically complex, but that has this sense of familiarity to it, because the building blocks of this more complex beat are just the little chunks of what you've already heard. Right. Okay, let's look at another example now. Here I've got a very simple drum beat. It's the same thing in the first bar as the second bar. But if we do something as simple as taking all of these notes and keeping all of the relationships between the notes the same, all of the rhythmic relationships, and we just shift around this entire figure in the second bar, we get some results that are just like way more compelling. That one's kind of skippy and bouncy. I like that one, where it all kind of lands on the snare hit on that last beat of the second bar. This one's cool because it sounds like the kicks and snares in the second bar here are kind of answering. It's like a call and response. Like this is a setup, and then it gets answered. So all we're doing is shifting around the exact same stuff that we've got in that first bar, but because we kind of keep that reference point of like where the beat is on the ride cymbal, we end up kind of really changing the feel of that second bar in a pretty dramatic way. Okay, so here's a more developed version of that same kick and snare riff. I've changed the drum sounds. But you can see the kick and snares here. From the first bar to the second bar, they're just offset by half a beat. This here is exactly the same as this here, but it's just starting in a different place. We are displacing it rhythmically. We've got an open hi-hat over here to help us keep the beat. This is just on every other beat, on the 1 and the 3. And then I've got a little kind of like hooky thing with the bass and the chord. I'll let you hear what that sounds like. And so in the second half of the riff here, in the second half of the loop, I've got these two, the kind of like 808 sound, and the chord are doing this rhythmically displaced little riff here, right? So if I were to move this little bit over here, we would have the same thing. Right, but because we've set it back a little way, the relationship between these three hits is exactly the same, but because we're shifting where they start, right, we're rhythmically displacing them, we get something that's much more complex, much more rhythmically compelling. There's like syncopation, there's kind of polyrhythmic stuff happening, but it all feels like it fits together because we're keeping the internal relationship between these hits and between these drum hits and all of that kind of stuff consistent. We're keeping it all the same. And then I've got a couple of other layers in here, so setting up a little call and response thing here with this other kind of bassy layer. And then just for hype, some just straight 4/4 claps. And this all just came together in like half an hour based on that one rhythmic displacement idea of these drums here that I showed you before, where we took this and turned it into this. Trying to take that same idea, that same principle of rhythmic displacement, and applying it across like a whole song idea. Gave me a really quick 4-bar loop that's like complex and it's compelling and it's like rhythmically engaging, but you can actually dance to it, right? It retains that sense of groove, that sense of feel, because it's not just a bunch of random notes thrown wherever in the bar. We've got these little chunks, these little phrases, splitting up our rhythmic ideas into little sections and just shifting about where they start within the loop to give us that complexity without sacrificing the feel. So I hope you find this as helpful and transformative for the way that you think about and feel and create rhythms as it was for me. Hit the link in the description to join my email list where I share tips and techniques and inspiration every single week. There's also a Discord that you can join down there and talk about what you're working on and share your progress. And now that you've got a handle on branching out and developing more interesting rhythms, you've got to actually develop it and turn it into a track and actually finish the damn thing now. So if you want my simple framework for helping you do just that, check out this video here.